Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, good evening, everyone, and another Sunday and another Sutta reading day. And we are back again with the Bhayabherava Sutta of the Majjima Nikaya that we started last week. And as we mentioned before, it's quite an interesting sutta because it deals with the Buddha's time as a bodhisattva. That is, before he became the Buddha, before he attained Nibbana. So here we were introduced to the character of the Brahmin Janus Soni, who happens to be a layman and a layman who hasn't taken refuge as well. So it's quite a interesting sutta because Buddha is directing this towards a layman, and this can be quite useful for us because it can be sort of easier to understand, more applicable to our lives. And so we got to know a little bit about the Buddha's character, the Bodhisattva's character, and we got some clues that he was already quite accomplished in his discipline, in his virtues, because he was restrained in bodily conduct, and he had a good livelihood. He was a very good ascetic, a very good shramana, and also he even had really good conduct in terms of his speech. So this led to him being quite confident, quite assured, and not having to worry about getting in trouble in the forest because he has good karma. And likewise, his even his mental conduct is quite pure. So that sort of indicates that even before he attained nibbana, he was a highly accomplished meditator. He had a um, very strong, highly established sati and sampajanya, very well established mindfulness. So he was always awake and always capable of looking at the mind and staying mindful. And when you stay mindful of an object such as the body or even any of the objects that we take in our meditation, unwholesome thoughts are less likely to erupt. So, as unenlightened beings have what is called kilesas, so the defilements of the mind, they are at a sort of they're called sleeping. They're called anusaya. They're just lying down, and they pop up. It's when they pop up that we start having bad thoughts and start doing bad things. So, to keep them stamped down like that, to stop them from appearing in the mind, it requires a very keen mind, a very aware mind, and also quite likely to be a highly concentrated mind. So maybe he even had attained to the absorptions by the time the sutta was said. That's just my theory. um, but that is a thing that said that one who has attained to the jhanas, which are the highly absorbed concentrations, they managed this thing called vikambana nibbana, which is not the real nibbana, but it is one where the 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 unwholesome qualities in the mind, they just stay away, and the mind is quite pure and clear all the time. And it is likely that the Buddha was at this stage even before he went into the forest to meditate. And from what we know of his life story, after he left the palace, after he left his life, luxurious life, in the householder life, he spent quite a lot of time wandering around, and he learned from quite a few teachers. Some of the most highly regarded teachers at the time, and he mastered their philosophy and he mastered their meditative attainments, and he got to such a level where he was even put at the same level as the main guru and even above one of them. So he was considered to be the foremost in whatever he did. And not only that, it is said in some sources that he was even quite well versed in the Vedas, which is what the Brahmins believed in. So he was very well versed in nearly every spiritual practice, in every philosophy, in every theory of the mind, in every theory of the universe that was around in India at the time. And as a layman, as a prince, he was from the warrior caste. So he was also said to be quite accomplished in warfare. I don't think he went to war, but he was a he was quite a highly accomplished martial artist, if you may, and he had mastered all the weapons of war. So we can see that he was a hyper competent person and very serious and very keen on seeing the truth, on awakening. And so it's like pretty much a genius. So this is something that we get the impression of a lot as you read the suttas, that truly how deeply profound this dhamma is, and how you really need someone this special in order to uncover it without a teacher, because we none of us have the strength of mind and character and the genius that the Buddha has to realize it by ourselves. That's why we need his help, that has been handed down through generations in the Sangha, through in the monkhood, and also in the suttas. So you really realize that we are standing on the shoulders of giants as we go through our journey. Um, so I will continue on with verse number 8. I considered thus: whenever recluses or Brahmins who are covetous and full of lust, I am uncovetous. So that's going on to the previous part where it's saying that whenever recluses or Brahmins are uh, who are covetous and full of lust, and they resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, they evoke unwholesome fear and death. Like so, being full of lust and being covetous, and you go to rest in these jungle thickets, your mind gets very fearful, and you start fearing, if you start being scared and paranoid of everything, because the mind is not clear and pure like the lens of a true seeker. So he's saying that he was not under these impressions, and with a mind of ill will and intentions of hate, I have a mind of loving kindness. So even before he attained to Buddhahood, he had a great deal of metta, he had a great deal of loving kindness. So he didn't have any ill will or hatred. um, let's say you are in the jungle and you get bitten by an ant, or there are some really painful ants in Asia, it's no joke, like they really hurt, or a wasp, or let's say something more serious like a snake. He wouldn't be trying to crush this ant and full of hate, he would be full of loving kindness. So this is the kind of mindset in which you can survive the ordeals of this world. Overcome by sloth and torpor, I am without sloth and torpor. Overcome with restlessness, unpeaceful in mind, I am peaceful in mind. Uncertain and doubting, I have gone beyond doubt. Given to self praise and disparagement of others, I am not given to self praise and disparagement of others. So he was um, quite humble. He didn't praise himself, he didn't disparage others, and subject to alarm and terror. I am free from trepidation, desirous of gain, honor, and renown. I have few wishes. They're lazy, unwanting in energy. I am energetic. Unmindful and not fully aware. I am established in mindfulness. Unconcentrated with straying minds. I am possessed of concentration. So again, we see the clues, like he was quite established in mindfulness, he was quite established in concentration. And when we were talking about the the previous ones is very interesting, because when he talks about this being full of lust, being full of ill will and sloth and torpor, sleepiness, and being restless and being uncertain and disparaging others and being discontent, being fearful and alarmed and just anxious and being desirous of gain, honor, and renown. These are these are all these are all obstacles that we ourselves will meet along our path of meditation, that we face even daily in our day-to-day lives. But these are magnified in meditation, because when the mind reaches a very stable, calm place, and it when the mind is very calm and serene, and when it is quite insightful, and these and such objects, such mind objects occur, they can be really multiplied, really magnified, and they can make one um, will go crazy. So in meditation, these are called the 10 maras, and so that's sensual pleasures, discontent, hunger, and thirst. So along our way we need to defeat them one by one. So the first one is like, when you say sensual pleasures, is like you're meditating, and then you start thinking of wanting to eat something really tasty, or thinking of I don't know, an old girlfriend or something. And this is something that can really disturb the mind, that can really take you away from the calm and the serenity, and take you away from wisdom. So that is what Buddha mentions as being free of lust and uncovetousness. So we can see from the Buddha's past, when he was a bodhisattva, he had all the pleasures of the world, all the sense pleasures of the world as a prince. And so maybe these things could invade the mind after he went forth, but he found a way of combating them. And you need a lot of wisdom in order to combat them, a lot of mindfulness and concentration. And then let's say you defeat that, and then you will come across discontent, like being very discontent and being very dissatisfied with the meditative life. These are all just clouds. They just cloud your mind. And let's say for someone who has had such a great life as the Prince Siddhartha, when he's living in the jungle, or when he's walking around the streets of India begging for food, um, it is likely to be cause discontent, but he had defeated it. You know, this can happen to monks. This can happen to lay people who start keeping the precepts and start meditating. They can start feeling bored and discontent, but they need to understand that this happens because they've already progressed quite a lot. Is when the mind starts realizing that running to distractions is useless, is pointless. So just let's do what is more wholesome, what is better in the long term, and what is better right now. But the kilesas don't like this, and they start to react. That's when these armies of Mara start fighting you, and you need to overcome it in order to keep progressing. And you will realize when you overcome it, there is a much greater happiness. There's such a great feeling of joy and serenity and calm. And let's say you destroy this discontent, then you come across the third Mara, which is hunger and thirst. So you start feeling really hungry and thirsty all of a sudden, all the time you're meditating, and all you can do is thinking, oh, just so hungry, and your stomach starts turning, and you start thinking, oh, this is torture, this is torture. Buddha didn't teach how to torture yourself. He taught the middle part. So maybe I should go and have a sandwich and then come back and meditate, or have a cup of water, come back and meditate. These are all just thoughts that invade the mind. And you get rid of that. And then you go on to craving everything. And then sloth and torpor is the fifth Mara, which is very hard to get through. Even one of the greatest disciples of the Lord Buddha, Venerable Moggolana, was really stuck on sloth and torpor. So he was falling asleep all the time. He couldn't meditate. He couldn't contemplate. He couldn't even remember the Dhamma because he was falling asleep. And it's like this is the fifth Mara. It is very hard to get through, and there's a lot of instructions on how to get through it. And once you get through that, it is very unlikely to come back again, because then you know the techniques on how to overcome sleepiness during meditation. It's like the mind gets very heavy, and the body is very heavy, and just you fall asleep, you don't even know it, and you think that you attained a jhana because it was so nice after, because you just took a nap. um, so once you overcome that, you will start getting fearful. Like fearful thoughts come in, fearful phenomena start coming in, and it needs a lot of mindfulness and needs a lot of wisdom to overcome it. And then to doubting the Dhamma, doubting meditation, doubting the Buddha, and take these all as just mental phenomena, being very mindful of them, that they come and go. These are impermanent, these are not self, there is no me in any of these thoughts. And these are dukkha, these are causes for suffering. And then you manage to overcome that, and there is a lot of lightness in the mind. There is a lot of calmness, a lot of lightness, sharpness of the mind that is unparalleled. And then when you get there, you start being conceited, and you start being very ungrateful of people that support you. So that's the eighth mara. This is all psychological phenomena that we come across in our path of practice. So this conceit and ingratitude needs to be fought, because it makes you a terrible person. It can make you an egomaniac. So we meditate to destroy our ego, to be better people. Then, but then it ends up making us more egotistic. That's not how it works. So you need to develop a lot of mudita, a lot of sympathetic joy, and a lot of compassion, a lot of loving kindness, and then you can get through that. But once you get through that, there is a point where the meditator, where the person becomes really nice, really good, very restrained. People start seeing them as being really good people, maybe even mistaking one to be a noble one, to be enlightened, even though one is not. It's just that they are very good meditators. And then they start thinking, you got such a nice aura, so calm, so nice. This monk, this person who is meditating is so nice. And then this starts getting to your head, and you start running after renown, wanting to get famous, wanting to gain more donations, more dana, and start looking for more recognition. And this is a very dangerous mara, and that's the ninth mara. And that needs to be overcome by just, I think, only way to overcome is by having a lot of faith in the Buddha, and being very simple, and maybe even practicing dhutangas, like wearing rag robes, and doing things that decrease this need for gain, this need for renown, this need to get famous. And it's a very dangerous one that can really take you. And once you get rid of that, then you started to exalt yourself, like, oh, I'm so much better than all these other people who are doing this and that. That's the 10th mara. I'm so much better than, let's say, all these people who have fallen for gain and renown. So you overwent the ninth mara, which is this uh, chasing after being famous, wanting to be a celebrity. So you overcome it, and then you start thinking all these meditation teachers and monks who are celebrities, who are choosing after celebrity, are really terrible, and I'm better than them. That's also a delusion. That's also a huge obstacle. So that's the 10th mara, thinking that you're better than these people. And this needs to be overcome. And once you overcome these, one is capable of attaining to the jhanas. One is like, I think jhanas are capable even before that, but one is capable of truly progressing on towards nibbana. And everyone who meditates seriously uh, has to face these obstacles. And some people manage to get through them all, and some people don't. And some people get stuck on them their entire lives. And that's one of the dangers that we need to be very aware of when we meditate. And reading suttas and listening to Dhamma talks really help us to overcome these issues in our Dhamma practice. This is something that we need to be always alert of, always mindful of, to not to come across these, not to get caught up in these things. So we can see that even before the Lord Buddha has attained Nibbana, he knew these things and he had managed to overcome them. And really, that is the only way that, I mean, that's because he's a bodhisattva, you know. It takes a truly a keen and a truly capable of mind to do these things. So I consider thus: whenever recluses or Brahmins, devoid of wisdom, drivellers, resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, then owing to the defect of their being devoid of wisdom and drivellers, these good recluses and Brahmins evoke unwholesome fear and dread. But I do not resort to roam remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest devoid of wisdom, a driveller. I am possessed of wisdom. So to overcome all these 10 maras, you need a lot of wisdom. And the Buddha's like, I think this is a warning for monks in the future and people who practice the Dhamma in the future to to not be a driveler, you know, not to be devoid of wisdom, to truly practice the Dhamma as it is taught with a lot of sincerity and humbleness and capability. So you can see the Lord Buddha uses sometimes what may be termed as harsh terms, but they're used compassionately in order to really hit our minds. You know, like don't be like this. Really don't be like this. So that is a footnote. Okay, don't worry about it. It's not too. Um, I resort to remote jungle thicket places in the forest as one of the noble ones possessed of wisdom. Seeing in myself this possession of wisdom, I found great solace in dwelling in the forest. So he's using the word noble ones, possessed of wisdom here. So it cannot be the noble ones that we mention in the sasana, such as the enlightened beings, the arahats and the sotapannas and so forth, because they were not in existence at the time. He may be referring to these really highly virtuous shramanas, these ascetics and these seekers of the truth that existed already at the time. They may not be enlightened, but they were possessed of these qualities that I mentioned before, of this self-effacement, of not falling for these 10 things, of being very humble, being very keen, being very sincere in their journey, and not looking for gain and honor, not disparaging others, not being covetous, not being full of hatred, being full of loving kindness and respect and these things. They were regarded as noble qualities, and so the Buddha had emulated these. So he's saying that uh, there were others like this as well at the time. That's again my interpretation. It may be wrong. I consider thus: there are the specially auspicious nights of the 14th, the 15th, and the 8th of the fortnight. Those are referring to the quarter moon, the new moon, and the full moons that were now and then considered to be really special times that are very conducive to practice. Nowadays, people like to go to the temple on these days, and this was an ancient custom. I don't really know the basis in it, but it is a very it's a good excuse to go to the temple, and you know, need more of those. So that's all the time that we have today for the reading. I hope you all enjoy this sutta and all the very practical advice that it contains on our meditation, on our journey in the Dhamma. It is this because it really highlights an issue called spiritual materialism, which is quite present in circles of meditation, in circles of spiritual practice. It is one where you start treating our spiritual attainments or our understanding and wisdom as a commodity, as a material to own and be superior to someone else over. And that is really not the point of the Dhamma. We do not practice in order to be better than anyone, in order to be better than someone who practices some other religion, or someone who doesn't practice meditation, or someone who doesn't keep the precepts. That is really not the point. That really defeats the entire purpose of the Dhamma. And in order to progress in our lives, in order to be free of fear and dread, um, we need to have this attitude of humbleness, of a lack of these egomaniacal things, of this materialistic outlook on meditation practice, trying to think of one as a better meditator as someone else, or trying to think that certain religions are not as good as ours. You need a certain level of measuring, I suppose, to have faith in the Buddha Dhamma, but let's not bring it to unwholesome things. So that is one of the good messages in this. And the for one who can overcome these 10 maras, who can overcome these things that is mentioned in the sutta, is less likely to fall into fear and dread during meditation. Is less likely to be a very paranoid person. It's very likely to be quite a calm and person full of wisdom and more likely to progress. So, thank you all for listening today, and I hope it helped. And I hope you read the suttas that I'm going through. I'm posting a link above the video in English, in Sinhalese, and in Thai. So if anyone wants to read it, please do so. It will really help you. Uh, it is good to meditate, but it's also very good to read the doctrine, to read the suttas, because that's where a lot of advice that is very practical is given. Thank you all for listening, and have a very lovely day. Bye bye.